Hello, this is WellArmedWithTacos. Welcome to another Stories from Sector 8 video. I don't even know what number this is. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and for good reason. For the most part, there hasn't been many games I've played since the last one. I think there's only been like 2. Only one springs to mind, but none of those games have been worthy enough of note. This one was not particularly worthy of note either, the one I'm about to tell, but it's I feel like it's note enough that I need to put one of these up because I haven't done this in a while, and if I feel like the series is kind of dead, mostly because 40k is kind of dead to me right now. So this was a 2-on-2 at 1250 points per player, like per player, not per side, per player. So that'd be what, 2500 per side. It was me playing my Gene Stealer cults and an orc player who isn't me, which is like the only other player we have who rarely plays orcs, but he decided to play orcs today. An orc player versus Deathwatch and Grey Knights. Unsurprisingly, we completely lost. If you don't know anything about Deathwatch or Grey Knights, Deathwatch and Grey Knights are both extremely specialized Space Marines. They're very, very good. And in my opinion, the Grey Knight Codex continues to be the reigning champion of the most absolutely overpowered codex in the game. It always has been since I've been playing, since 4th edition. That's just Grey Knights' thing. That's their thing, that's Grey Knights. Grey Knights are extremely expensive per model, but they are all very good. Every single Grey Knight, to begin with, has force weapons. They're all psychers. They've got storm bolters instead of bolters. They've just got so much stuff, it's ridiculous. Grey Knights are very, very, very good. Deathwatch are also, they're the same sort of thing as Grey Knights, but a different road. They're more specialized than your average Space Marine, less specialized than a Grey Knight, but they are still a very specialized army, and I have yet to play them enough to determine whether or not they're overpowered, but they won this game. Essentially, how this game went down was the orc player foot slogged everything. The only vehicles he brought were killing cans, which is fine. I foot slog when I play orcs too. My army, being the Gene Stealer cult, came up practically everywhere. The problem is Grey Knights are still very good in assault, so I have to be careful when I assault Grey Knights. Because they can best me in combat. Same thing with Deathwatch, and the problem is the Deathwatch dudes. I'm not saying Deathwatch are OP yet, but I'm saying Deathwatch specifically against the Gene Stealer cult wreck Gene Stealer cult. They were in a box together at one point, like Deathwatch and Gene Stealer cult, like as enemies. Deathwatch are basically designed to fight Xenos. That's what Deathwatch is. In lore, Deathwatch is a Xenos hunting group of Space Marines, and they are especially good against Gene Stealer cults. Here's why. Practically everybody in the Deathwatch cult is a Stern Guard, which means they have specialist ammunition. One of the specialist ammunitions they can take is called Kraken rounds, which ignore cover saves. No cover saves allowed. In addition, they're fired from bolters, which makes them automatically AP5. This means they are firing AP5 ignore cover weapons. My army has stealth enshrouded on turn 1 and a 5-up armor save. I get no cover save, I get no armor save, I am toughness 3, single wound, and most of my units consist of 5 dudes who are like 20 points a model. No cover saves means I crumble into dust, and that's what happened. I was like, we called it turn 4. I was not tabled by that point, but I had so little dudes left alive that I was practically tabled. I had a unit of aberrants that never came in, because they came in, but when they infiltrated in, I rolled a 1, which means they walk on my table edge. So I had them return to shadows so I can try again, because aberrants, they can't walk from the table like that. They'll just get killed. They have no guns. So they came back. They went back into shadows, and every single time I rolled their reserve after that, they failed. I had another unit which had my warlord in it, which did the same thing. Rolled, they came in on a 1. I set them back in. They came in again, but they came in on a 1. So basically a 1 is the death knell to my army. My army really needs to get lots of 6s and 5s to make it through. I did roll 1 6 that mattered. My Gene Stealers rolled a 6, which is always the moment for both players. Cause like I feel bad about it, and you know it's going to be bad for you. They assaulted Grey Knights, killed them, and then got killed themselves. That's what always happens with them. But yeah, it was very kind of tailored against us. The Grey Knight player was himself almost completely tabled, but that's not saying much for a Grey Knight player. We killed like 2 units and he was almost tabled, but that's just how Grey Knights are, you know. But the Death Knights player had only lost 1 model, not 1 unit, 1 model by the end of it. So he was sweeping up what the Grey Knights couldn't finish. They both brought dreadnoughts. My anti vehicle is in melee, couldn't touch it. The orc player didn't have any anti vehicle, couldn't do anything. He had a looter squad that was basically our answer to vehicles, and they had a dread knight pop in and just completely he killed all of them in one go, because that's just how that's what Grey Knights do. That's what Dread Knights do. Lots of shots. It was painful, but it was I can't say it was infuriating. It wasn't an infuriating game. I played it, and it's one of those games where you know you're walking in on a loss right off the bat because you're playing against Grey Knights. And Grey Knights are Grey Knights, and it's very hard to beat Grey Knights. They're just a very powerful army. This marks my 7th loss in a row, not including the one game that I had that ended in 5 minutes, because I don't count that. That was very silly game. You know, I'm talking about the one I did a story on where it was a 2,000 point game and he only deployed 1 unit, and I had Gene Stealers come up and assault turn 1. I'm talking about that game. I don't count that. Not counting that game, I've lost my last 7 games in a row. And if I did count that game, it'd be like 5 anyway. So it's I'm counting 7 losses in a row. I think the longest streak I've ever had is 9, so I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last story I did, because it's been so long, but at this point, I am officially no longer fighting Chaos for the foreseeable future. I do not fight Chaos Space Marines, I do not fight Chaos Demons, I do not fight like Renegades and Heretics, none of that stuff, because all those codexes are just ridiculous. That I say that because like they're less OP in my opinion than great. Well, I would have to consider that one. But the thing is, we have so many Chaos players here, it feels like that's all I ever get to fight. Like, this is the first time I've fought Grey Knights in months, so that's why I tolerate it, you know, because it's a game that isn't freaking Chaos. But every time I fight Chaos, I lose to Chaos, and I lose to Chaos because they do the same shtick over and over and over. Oh, I summon. Oh, my unit comes back at full power. Oh, I bring this Demon Prince with a 3-up rerollable invul save and a feel no pain save and all this and stuff. And by the way, I fly and I can assault you, or I can jink and then assault you. And that codex is so silly. But let me think. Let me try to think if there was anything else of note that happened in this game in particular. Boys never saw combat. No boys ever saw combat. He only brought 2 units of boys, and they were just foot slogging the whole time. They didn't make it anywhere. That happens. Nob saw combat, and Nob did well the first round of combat. They lost the second round because they got charged. And Deathwatch, you know, Deathwatch are still good in close combat. They're good at everything, really. But yeah, so that was painful. I had a couple of assaults. The only successful one was the one between Gene Stealers at the start of the turn. Oh, here's something funny that happened. And this is Grey Knights. Yeesh. This says everything about them. Now, I'll start by saying this was an incredibly good dice roll. Incredibly good dice roll. He had this guy has 14, the orc player, 14 Storm Boys assault a unit of 5 Grey Knights. And they weren't strikers, they were ones with big guns. Like they had like heavy bolters or something. Like they were like side cannons or auto, like, yeah, I think it's called side cannons or something. Like they're sort of a devastator unit, so they're not melee prior oriented. 14 Storm Boys is out these guys. They shoot Overwatch. 2 Storm Boys drop. This is fine. This is fine so far. Storm Boys make it to combat. They're initiative 4, or all orcs are initiative 2, so they swing first. Drop 2 more boys. 2 more of the Storm Boys are down. So there's 11 Storm Boys left who charged. That means 4 attacks apiece. The guy rolls 44 dice. I do not remember how many hits he made, and I don't remember how many wounds it was, but it was like 20. It was like 20 successful wounds. The Grey Knight player rolls 1 model dies. 1 failed 3-up armor save. The orc player has to make a morale test. Rolls, I think, like an 8. Fails. All 11 boys get swept. Gone. And he has mob rule. He didn't forget mob rule. I didn't let him forget mob rule. But he rolled breaking heads, and he didn't have a character unit. Failed. They got swept. 11 of these guys just die to these 4 Marines in close combat. And it was at that point where we were like, yeah, we that cemented their loss. He called it like the turn after that because he had to go, and at that point all I had left on the table was a unit of neophytes and a unit of acolytes, the ones who came up from my table edge who weren't doing a damn thing. So it was over. But yeah, that's how that one went. Grey Knights and Deathwatch, 2 specialized, man. They're very good. All cracking rounds. This stuff is silly, and then Deathwatch had that whole thing where like they could declare units and reroll their hits against them, and they've got shred and all that stuff. So they're crazy guys. But highly specialized Space Marines kicked our butt. It sucked, but I feel it could have gone differently if some dice rolls had definitely changed. Like if I had rolled more 6s, like especially if the Deathwatch player said the same thing because he knows my genes to the cults. If I had rolled a 6 with those aberrants show up and something is dead. That's just what aberrants do, and then they die, but something is getting dead first. And Grey Knights and Deathwatch cost a lot more than those aberrants do. Thank you all for listening. I don't know when they will be in the story. Maybe next week, but there was. I should say there was I talked earlier about the one game that happened before this one. I can briefly tell you what happened there and why it wasn't worth mentioning. Tau versus Dark Angels, 1,000 points. 1,000 points. 1,000 points. I'll repeat that until it sticks in your head. Me playing Tau, I brought basically no anti-vehicle because it's a 1,000-point game. It's whatever. The guy brings 3 Vindicators. He brings 3 Vindicators, and 3 Vindicators have a special rule that says they can fire together in a apocalypse-sized blast template that's strength 10, AP 2, ignore cover. Yep. It was one of those games where I only killed 1 unit before I got tabled. 1 unit before I got tabled, and the 1 unit I killed was his independent character on a jet that was floating around by himself. I killed no other units successfully, and I was tabled. So that one was not worth mentioning. Yeah, 3 Vindicators. He's that kind of guy. Alright, thank you all for listening. And this is WellArmedWithTacos. Until next time, bye.